All right.
All right. We are going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for being here with us today. My name is Louise Strandu. I'm a Senior Business Development Manager with the AWS Marketplace team as part of our Amazon partner organization.
Hi, everyone. My name is Renee Paul. I manage a team of AWS Marketplace customer advisors. What's a customer advisor, you might ask? We spend a lot of our time talking to companies like yourselves to understand how best to incorporate Marketplace into your procurement strategies to help achieve all the benefits that Marketplace can offer. Really excited that we're going to be joined here in a little bit by Harish Parvani, who is the VP of Platform Engineering from CarGurus. We'll hear more from him in a little bit.
All right, so welcome to MKT106. We're here to talk about how to evaluate and procure SaaS applications fast using AWS Marketplace. Before we get started, I want to thank you guys so much for making it to today, making it to our session. Renee and I were talking about this earlier. I think that we can agree you all are easily the best customers since you've made it to Thursday afternoon at reInvent. So I know that you are really, really committed to AWS, you're committed to learning, and you are truly you've outlasted some of the others who have already left. So thanks for making it with us today. We're going to have some fun and hopefully learn some new things about SaaS, about AWS Marketplace, and be able to finish off reInvent strong. So we're going to talk about a couple of exciting things today. We're going to start by just giving some context and talk about the market-leading changes that are driving customers to really lean into SaaS applications and why Marketplace is a critical part of procurement today for customers. Next, we're going to talk about some of the key challenges that customers experience when they are working through the deployment process of SaaS applications to understand what does the buyer journey look like and what are the common pitfalls customers experience. Third, we're going to have a voice of the customer. So Harish is going to join us on stage and share some insights from his experience in both using SaaS to drive transformation and how AWS Marketplace has aided in that effort. And then lastly, Renee and I are going to do a deep dive. We're going to look at some of the key features that have come out this year, part of reInvent, and then some of the things that we've developed over the years to help make SaaS procurement through Marketplace as effective, fast, and easy as possible.
Now, before we get started, by show of hands, how many of your companies have already prioritized software as a service wherever possible for your new technology needs? All right. And how many of you are SaaS providers whose customers are prioritizing software as a service for their technology needs? All right, fantastic. That's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. So let's kind of talk about the state of the industry as it relates to software as a service. We know that organizations, large and small, are racing to achieve competitive advantage through digital transformation strategies. And we also know that an increasing number of those companies are prioritizing software as a service as one of those key pillars of their strategy. Why is that? Well, customers tell us that software as a service helps them achieve agility to be able to pivot quickly to embrace new technologies, to address emerging trends. We know that SaaS solutions offer decreased operational complexity, and by default, that translates into increased efficiency for our customers. We know that with SaaS, you get the opportunity to start small and grow as large as you need to over the time period that you need to best suit your needs. And lastly, we know that SaaS helps to facilitate innovating faster than ever before. This is all great in terms of what the promise of digital transformation and SaaS can provide. But we also know that with the goodness that comes from that, we also see complexities introduced into the governance side of your spend, of your management, of your procurement strategies around those software solutions. Builders and buyers tell us it can be complicated to try to find the solutions that are best suited for their use cases, that it can be difficult to track and manage usage metrics, and difficult to track and manage spend. Risk management becomes so much more important in that scenario, and it's critical to be able to strike a great balance between innovation and speed with governance and compliance. Now, AWS Marketplace is a platform that was built specifically to do just that. We are helping customers to strike that balance in order to get all those great benefits of SaaS that we talked about, as well as address those governance and compliance needs. So let's talk a little bit more detail about AWS Marketplace. You can think of AWS Marketplace as a digital catalog that our organizations are using every day to find, try, deploy, and manage their software as a service spend. The marketplace is a broad selection of products, software, data, services that are from vendors that you know and trust already. We have more than 20,000 transactable listings on the marketplace today, and over 5,000 of those are software as a service. We'll talk a little bit about how we make it easier for you to find the things you're looking for, but the important thing to take away there is that it is a broad catalog for you to choose from. The marketplace offers features that are specifically intended to help you speed up that procurement process from when you identify a need to when you can actually start getting value out of that software. We also make sure that our software is set up to be deployable easily and quickly out of the marketplace so that you can get to that point of getting value quicker than ever before. And lastly, really importantly, the marketplace incorporates features that will help you manage the security and compliance side, reducing your risk exposure as you're pursuing your digital transformation strategies. So with that, before I move on to Louise, I want to highlight a couple of things. Forrester Consulting. In Q4 of 2023, Forrester published their Forrester Wave for SaaS marketplaces. And in that study, they demonstrated that AWS continues to raise the bar for transacting and contracting with real dollar benefits to our customers. We were the top-ranked SaaS marketplace in both the strategy and market presence categories and had the highest score possible for transacting, for contract terms, integration, and access and restrictions criteria. But let's talk about that real dollar benefits point for a moment. In 2022, we commissioned Forrester to complete a study for us called The Total Economic Impact of AWS Marketplace. And in that study, we were able to demonstrate that customers who were using the marketplace could achieve a 75% reduction in onboarding effort for their new partners, up to a 66% time savings due to the procurement efficiencies that they were gaining from the features in Marketplace, and a 10% reduction in licensing costs, largely due to the licensing flexibility available through the marketplace. And I don't know about any of you guys, but I would take a 10% reduction in my licensing costs any day that I could then use toward doing something fun and cool and innovative for my business. So Louise, why don't you talk to us a little bit about the SaaS buyer journey and some of the challenges that our customers see?
Yeah, thanks, Renee. So we're going to talk about the buyer journey. And as a preface, how many people here have heard that AWS works backwards from customers? Okay, well, if you haven't heard it, that's what we try to do. Our philosophy is really based around trying to solve the pain points that customers are actively experiencing, as well as looking ahead to try and resolve challenges that customers are likely to experience as transformation evolves. So when we think about the SaaS buyer journey, today we know that there are some necessary guardrails and some necessary processes that are part of the SaaS buyer journey to help assure that customers are buying the right software is compliant with our regulatory needs, and that the software is going to work for what we're trying to solve. And unfortunately, at times, some of those processes can add time to the overall process that it takes to get access to the applications that we need to innovate. And when we look at the overall timeline and the overall process of procuring software, what AWS Marketplace has tried to do is figure out which features or which ways can we innovate to help aid and expedite some of these key processes along the buyer journey. So we know that we're not just going to get rid of InfoSec. We can't just get rid of legal. We still have to think about demo and pilot because these are key parts of the process. But how can we figure out how to make the process of buying software not something that takes months and months and months, but something that can maybe take weeks? So AWS Marketplace has specifically focused on how to, like I mentioned, expedite that buyer journey, right? So the way that we develop features is by working backwards and identifying areas that we can introduce features that can solve some of that buyer pain. We're going to talk about some of these features in more depth today. But for example, we know that the legal process is a necessary aspect of procuring software and reviewing terms. AWS Marketplace has introduced features like our Marketplace Standard Contract to make that process a little bit faster by allowing customers to accept a contract once and then hopefully accept it again and again as they purchase contracts or applications from a variety of different vendors who are all offering the same terms. So collectively, what we see is that when AWS Marketplace is able to develop and innovate features along the buyer journey, we're not looking to necessarily change overall the way that our customers procure software. In some cases we are, and we're looking to evolve that. But really what we're trying to do is make it faster, make it simpler, and adapt to the necessary changes that our customers are experiencing in the industry today. All right. So with that, before we dive into what all those exciting features are, we want to take a minute to actually hear about this experience of transformation and leveraging SaaS from an expert and from a voice of the customer. So I'm so excited to introduce and include Harish on stage here to give us some background about the innovation and transformation that he's driving at his company, CarGurus, and talk a little bit about his experience in leveraging Marketplace to drive transformation overall.
Awesome. Thanks,
Hi, Harish.
Louise.
Thanks for joining us on stage.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. And I know it's a Thursday afternoon. We're all looking forward to wrapping up a fantastic weekend, heading back home. So I'm glad to see everybody here. I want to talk a little bit about CarGurus, what we do, and then jump into sort of how we're using Marketplace, etc. But let me start off with a quick round of introduction. My name is Harish Parwani. I'm VP of Platform Engineering at CarGurus. We are a Boston-based company focusing on the automotive marketplace. Any car enthusiast or anybody who's bought and sold a car would definitely have heard of CarGurus as a platform. So we are a SaaS platform ourselves, and interestingly enough, we are built on a marketplace that we've created, bringing millions and millions of consumers looking to buy or sell a car with tens of thousands of dealers. We are the largest marketplace in the US. We also operate in Canada and the UK. And we've, over the last few years, augmented our business from just being a marketplace to being a full platform where you can go sell your car, you can make purchases online and sort of have more negotiation, do financing. There's a lot of pieces we've built over the last few years. We also our secret sauce has always been what we call the instant market value, allowing our users, our consumers, to be able to see if a car or a truck they're buying is a good deal, a bad deal, a great deal, etc. So using data, using the power of data analytics, we sort of built this platform over the last few years. We also offer this to our dealers. Our dealers get pricing recommendations from us, inventory recommendations from us, allowing them to make the right decisions to attract the right audience, etc. We can jump to the next slide. We have over 30 million users a month, 30 million unique users a month who come to our website shopping for cars, some ready to buy, some browsing because they're interested in the space. We've got tens of thousands of dealers who use our network and allow us to show you all the vehicles you're interested in. We've got 80 million sessions that we generate on a monthly basis. So we have the scale and we have the luxury that we have a lot of people who trust our brand, etc. And I'm just honored to be here as a marketplace customer and happy to talk more about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we're going to jump into a quick Q&A and run through a couple questions to help get a better sense of SaaS and Marketplace and how it's driving your business.
Why don't we start, Harish, with just a broad brush view on how do you view third parties as it relates to contributing to your digital transformation strategies today?
Sure, thanks. So we are a SaaS platform ourselves. So we firmly believe in the SaaS platform. Like we're in the business of letting our users find the best cars that they're looking for or sell the cars that they want to sell. So we're not in the business of building the infrastructure behind the scenes, etc. A very, very firm believer of buying where we can, to augment and support our services. And we've have had trust with the marketplace for many years now. We've been a marketplace customer for at least 4 years, or close to 4 years at this point, and we've seen sort of the journey over the last few years. So it's exciting. Like, SaaS is who we are. That's our core. That's our bread and butter. The vendors we work with over the last few years have very, very rapidly adopted the space. So it's definitely exciting times to look and see like how people are innovating. And we trust our SaaS vendors because they know best how to operate their platforms. I would much rather have my teams focus on how do we help deliver a better product than run these systems ourselves and try to optimize them for the best.
Yeah. Just to double click into that a little bit further, I would love to know how SaaS specifically has driven innovation at CarGurus, and if there's examples of specific projects or vendors even that you have worked with that have driven a really meaningful type of innovation.
Sure, absolutely. So we've, our journey onto AWS by itself, I think would be a great example. Like 4 years back, we were a data center-based enterprise. All of our workloads were running in data center, and we made a strategic move to partner with AWS, move to the cloud. So that's where our journey started. And then since then, our goal has been to take various pieces of our infrastructure that need more sort of hand-holding and be those from a database perspective. So we are a MongoDB customer, to our Artifactory stores with JFrog Artifactory, etc. We've moved bits and pieces over time, and that's a journey that still continues today. And we're like excited to get it to the next part where everything we have would hopefully be SaaS, and not just SaaS, but also sort of managed services that we're able to expand to from the vast selection of vendors that are there. And it's an honor and pleasure for me because I've met so many of our vendors here at re:Invent, and I think it's always fun to see how things are changing. And for us, the biggest piece is the ability for our vendors to innovate is way faster than what we'd be able to do in-house. So I want to use those advanced features and make changes, etc., rather than having to worry about patching our systems and making sure uptime is there. And look at the alerts and monitor the systems, etc. So, hand it to the experts so we can focus on our core business.
Yeah, makes sense.
Perfect. So I know that you started your marketplace journey roughly 4 years ago. It's quite common for first-time buyers of the marketplace to be incentivized through, it might be a promotional incentive, it might be draw down on a spend commitment. But I'm interested in kind of skipping over the first one and talking about 4 years ago, after that first one, what led to the second and the third, and the fact that you're still leveraging Marketplace 4 years later?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm going to be very honest here. Initially, there was a little skepticism in terms of, will our vendors give us the same pricing that they're doing it outside the marketplace, in the marketplace? But very quickly, those concerns were assured, and we had the same pricing that they were offering us within the marketplace. So the next step was, ease of implementation for us. That was really, I think, what made the barrier to entry sort of very low for us after that first one. We did a very simple thing. We set up IAM roles for the few people in the organization that had the power to sign contracts. And as an entity, and most companies do that, you have different thresholds for contracts that you set up. So me, a number of my peers, etc., have signing authority, obviously including our CTO, CFO, CEOs. They have special IAM roles we've set up that they can just go in and approve marketplace orders, approve private offers that come in through marketplace vendors. Right. So that definitely made our life a lot easier. Marketplace allows us to link in any custom contracts or custom MSA agreements that we've established with these vendors. So once you're in the marketplace, you can just link on a custom MSA agreement that you've had with a vendor offline, and you've had that for a long time. And you can just review, oh yeah, this is the last agreement we did with this, all looks good, approve the thing. So I think those were definitely some concerns that were, assured and taken care of very, very quickly. And then just the ease of the system, right? It's, even with new vendors that we're dealing, I would say I've probably dealt with 30 plus vendors on a regular basis, and I think there's been one or two of them that were not on the marketplace. So just your catalog is expansive, and it just makes life easy for us, and that's what we want.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
makes sense. So I wanted to double click into something you mentioned before about getting over some of the hesitations, and how did you drive adoption of Marketplace within your organization?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, initially, most of those contracts going into the marketplace was sort of going through my team. So initial adoption, I would say, was a little bit of like, hey, we have this tool, we have the benefits here, let's do it. And then sort of it expanded to my peers when we showed them how easy it was. So for them, it was, they want to make sure we're using the tools that we want. We have the choice available in the system. So the one feature that I think we've just started using and we probably want to use a lot more is comparing vendors and understanding their offerings and the impact that they have within the system. I would say we're still guilty of doing a lot of our research offline and then coming into the platform to mainly do the procurement and the purchasing piece. But I think over the years, there's a lot more capabilities Marketplace team has added in terms of being able to compare the vendors, make it easy for us to understand who else is in the market.
Yeah.
We do speak with a lot of vendors at events like re:Invent, but there's a lot of people who you don't get a chance to talk to and understand how their offering is competitive, et cetera. So that's definitely an area we've started doing, and I think there's a lot more that we can do in that area.
Yeah, that's great. I'm curious. So you talked about the comparing tools to help you with finding and discovery. Is there anything about the re:Invent show this year, anything new that you learned about that is kind of top of mind that you might want to explore?
Yeah, absolutely. And I might butcher the exact term, but I think it's called Buy with AWS or something. I saw an announcement earlier today. Typically what would happen is we're working with a vendor, and I'd have to go, or one of my peers or somebody in the procurement team would go on the marketplace site and search to see if this vendor's on the system. So this just makes our lives easier. Like we know, and it might be a link, might be a logo that, oh, this vendor works with AWS. We can consolidate our purchasing and our process through the system. So that was definitely makes my life easier. So I'm excited that that's there, and hopefully it'll be implemented by a lot of the vendors very, very soon.
Yeah, we agree. We're excited about it as well.
And we're going to talk more about Buy with AWS in a minute. So if you're like, I don't know what that is, we got you. Okay, Harish, last question. What did we not ask you, or what would be your kind of parting advice for folks that are considering Marketplace or making a bigger play with SaaS in their innovation strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of things. Like the Marketplace is evolving. So I just wanted to actually commend you guys on small things that were pain points earlier on that have been fixed now. Our ability to go in and put in purchase order numbers into the system.
Yeah.
Back in the days when we first started, it was an email to somebody on the team who would fix it for us. But now it's right in the system. So before you sign a contract, you could do that. I definitely would say and I was looking at your slides before, there's the ability to have the legal and the InfoSec process streamlined. It's something that we haven't really started taking advantage of, but it's going to be a huge reliever of a pain point for organizations. So I would definitely say, use this, use the capabilities. We right now need to ask for all the documentation from our vendors in a separate system, review them, approve them, go back and forth. If you're providing those capabilities, that should make our lives a lot easier. So I would say, it's the ease of the system for me. What is the USP of using Marketplace? So my recommendation would be, try it out. I think you guys will see the benefits of it, and will be like, oh, this is so much easier than what we're doing today.
Awesome.
That's wonderful. Thanks so much, Harish. We really appreciate you being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Harish is going to join us at the end of the session back here for questions. Excellent job. Just to recap a couple of things that Harish mentioned today that I think are really important. First of all, CarGurus is a SaaS company, but they're also a SaaS-first company who uses SaaS as a prioritized solution set to meet their own customers' needs, which I think is a great testament. Marketplace makes it easy to purchase the products that they're looking for in just a few clicks, and we heard some examples of that from Harish earlier. And I think the last point that Harish mentioned, which I think is really important, is don't be afraid to try it. There are folks like myself that are here to help you learn and understand how to incorporate Marketplace into your experience. And the first time is the hardest, right? Just work with us and we'll help you find that right first point of entry.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're going to switch gears a little bit and we're going to talk about how Marketplace can solve some of the key challenges within the buyer journey. So let's talk about the 4 challenges that we're going to look at today. We're going to talk about first how Marketplace can help solve that find challenge. So yeah, there's a lot of vendors out there. There's a lot of solutions out there. How can Marketplace help narrow in on which solution is going to be the best to solve the use case and to help you innovate faster? Second is the try challenge. So how does AWS Marketplace help you actually verify that the solution that you found is the right one to work? How do you verify that that solution is going to maybe meet expanded use cases? And how can you do that simply and quickly from the Marketplace? Third is the buy challenge. Okay, now you found it, you've tested it, it's good to go, but you actually have to work through procurement and buying that software. We're going to talk about a few things that Marketplace has today and a few things that we've launched this year that make that process of purchasing simpler, easier, and more flexible for customers. And then last, we're going to talk about deployment, how AWS Marketplace has innovated, what it means to deploy SaaS applications, especially as SaaS applications evolve and become more complicated. So we're going to dig into features that meet each of these challenges and hopefully help, again, make that process of buying software on Marketplace move from months to weeks.
So let's start with find. I mentioned earlier today that we have over 20,000 transactable listings on the Marketplace today, and more than 5,000 of those are software as a service. So how do we make that process easier for our customers today? To begin with, the Marketplace looks and feels and acts like a pretty typical e-commerce site. You may have heard of one called Amazon.com. It acts a lot like Amazon.com, but it's for your third-party software, data, services needs. What does that mean? So at the most basic level, there's a search bar, and you can type in application security or generative AI or whatever it is that you're looking for right in that search bar, up to and including looking for a specific vendor or a specific product. But if you don't know what you're looking for and you don't want to have to weed through and filter down from 20,000 to 1 or 2, we do offer curated storefronts that can help you filter down your list of options by use case, by industry, by solution type, by even a software category. We also offer the ability, once you get to your specific products that you're looking at, you can review product detail, product reviews that are coming in from buyers and third-party suppliers, security and compliance information about those particular listings, all of the data that you really need to start your process of whittling down to the couple of solutions that you really want to dive into when you're doing your evaluations, you can find through the Marketplace. In addition to that, many of our software as a service providers offer free trials, and Louise is going to talk about that here in a little bit, but that's an excellent way to be able to understand if something is going to work for your particular use case without having to go through that arduous months-long process or even weeks-long process that we just talked about. Now, there's something that we just mentioned or that Harish brought up that is called Buy with AWS. And this was a very exciting announcement that was just made in Ruba Borno's keynote session yesterday afternoon. What this essentially is we are now offering the ability for you to go to your provider's website, look at the solutions that they're offering, and to be able to see directly which of those solutions are available through the Marketplace, execute on a free trial straight through your provider's website, subscribe to that software straight from your provider's website, and all of that is actually taking place just like you were in the AWS Marketplace console. So it's going straight to your AWS account, just like it would if you were in the AWS Marketplace console. We think about this as meeting our customers where they are. helping you find the products that you need, helping you purchase and acquire those products from the partners that you know and trust. This is a huge step forward for AWS Marketplace, and we are really, really excited about how this is going to move forward the find portion of the marketplace experience.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I just want to add something. I think we've been thinking about and iterating on this idea for over 5 years, and something that I've heard a lot of this reInvent is the growing number of customers who are maybe not, the typical AWS Marketplace customer, customers who are, part of a line of business or who are not part of an infrastructure company that are looking to procure software from Marketplace because of the overall optimization that Marketplace provides. Buy with AWS is such a great feature to actually help those kinds of customers discover products and access those products without, needing to go to the Marketplace catalog where they might not think to look for those applications in the first place. So excited about Buy with AWS. I think it's a really awesome feature, and it really helps us expand how we can service customers that are across industries, across business horizontal business applications, and great for our vendors too. So really, really, really stoked about this feature.
Yeah, great point.
All right, let's talk about solving the try challenge. So we mentioned this in the beginning. You're trying to figure out which applications are going to work best for your use case and how to make sure that it's the right product for what you're trying to solve for. AWS Marketplace SaaS free trials are an excellent feature to help with this process. So you can guess what it does from the name. It's a free trial. You can search in the AWS Marketplace catalog to identify products that have free trials. So you can narrow in your find search to look for only products that offer trials. And you can manage and review free trials directly from the AWS console. So as you are going through this trial process, you can evaluate if an application is going to fit your use case and needs without incurring hidden fees. And then you can choose to upgrade or continue with a purchase based on how that trial works. And again, you can do all of that right from the AWS Marketplace console. I think SaaS free trials works really well with a lot of features that we've launched this year at reInvent. You just saw it on the Buy with AWS slide. It works really well in that concept. It also works well with another set of features that we launched this year, which is our request demo and request private offer buttons that we've enabled vendors to activate and include on their product detail pages. So the way this works is sellers who have SaaS products in the marketplace can enable a customer to request a demo or request what's called a Marketplace private offer. If you're not familiar with a Marketplace private offer, this is effectively a way that a customer can access customized pricing as well as customized terms from their AWS Marketplace provider. And so for a buyer who's completing a SaaS free trial and they're trying to figure out, great, this works for the use case I was just testing, but maybe I have expanded use cases, or I'm going to buy this software at scale for my team. Requesting a demo and being able to then request private offer pricing right from the listing after you've completed that trial is a really good way to actually finish out that trial process to verify, does this solution fit the need I'm looking to solve for? So super excited about these. You can, again, search for these products in the detail page, and it's combined with other features like Buy with AWS, so that as you're not just browsing the Marketplace catalog, but you're looking at software options from trusted vendors, you can see these opportunities to engage a free trial, request a demo, and request a private offer from those ISVs.
Okay, so now we have found what we're looking for, and we've tried it. And now we know that we want to do something with it and we want to buy it. So let's talk a little bit about some of the concepts around how we support facilitating the buy process within AWS Marketplace. A couple of high-level concepts. So there are typically one of two different buckets that largely our software providers will land in as far as how they price their products. The first is pay-as-you-go. Consumption-based approaches. You'll also find this. You'll find this across both self-service as well as free trials, as well as private offers even. But the concept of this is really more, it's a consumption-based model. And then we have upfront contracts. And upfront contracts are where you've determined that you need a solution, you understand the volumes that you need, you understand the performance metrics and everything else associated to that purchase, and you want to take advantage of advantageous pricing. That would be your upfront contracts. And those could be multi-year, those could be annual, those could be monthly, whatever is going to make the most sense for what you're trying to do. But generally speaking, they'll fall into those two concepts, pay-as-you-go or upfront contracts. But then beyond that, I mentioned earlier that customers have the opportunity to self-service, which is most of those 20,000 listings I talked about earlier. You can literally go to the website and you can engage with those listings and purchase those listings without talking to a single human being. And that can be very useful for things like free software or for software that you're just testing out in a proof of concept. But when you get to the point that you're wanting to leverage something at scale for your enterprise, chances are somebody in your organization is going to want to negotiate a contract. You're going to need specialized terms. You're going to want specialized pricing. That's where we land into the concept of private offers. Now, those private offers can come directly from a software provider or a services provider. They can also come through a channel partner. So if you have a preferred channel partner that you work with or a value-added reseller that you work with, they are able to support those private offers as well. The last thing that I want to mention, just in terms of how this process works, when our sellers are setting up their pricing models, they get to decide the flexibility that they want to offer to their end customers. And we actually do have sellers on the marketplace who will offer more flexibility in terms of how they construct payment schedules and what types of pricing methodologies they'll support through the marketplace than they even will directly. So you sometimes will even find better options available through the marketplace. Now, I want to talk for a minute. I talked a little bit about payment schedules, and we've supported the ability for our sellers to define payment schedules on behalf of their customers for some time now. But sometimes what you'll find happens is that what you as a customer may need from a payment schedule perspective and what your partner might need from a payment schedule perspective are in conflict. So in the past, what we've been able to do is offer to help facilitate bringing a financing third party into the mix to help you finance those transactions. But those types of engagements typically happened outside of the marketplace. Just within the past month, we have announced financing within the AWS Billing and Cost Management console. And this is supported by PNC Vendor Finance. But essentially what this is and what this allows you to do is go into the Billing and Cost Management console, complete the information that's required for you to secure financing, and you are then, once you're approved, you're able to use that financing across multiple AWS Marketplace software purchases when you need it. The financing will not kick in until you actually use it. So it's a great way if you've got some requirements to manage cash flow. This new financing in the AWS Billing and Cost Management console is something really excellent to explore. Now, I'm not a legal person, but I am obligated to say, currently this is available to select AWS customers in the U.S., excluding Nevada, North Carolina, North Dakota, Tennessee, and Vermont. That was my... That's good. Okay, let's talk about the final piece of this process and move into deploy.
It's the most exciting part. So the deploy challenge. I think this one is really interesting. As SaaS applications evolve, and as customer, use cases and customer innovation in the cloud evolves, SaaS applications are getting more complex. And at times, there are SaaS applications that are tightly bundled up and they're all managed neatly in the provider's environment, and it's great. But increasingly, that's not always the case. And we have a lot of ISVs out there who have really great solutions that are going to require agents or applications or pieces of architecture to be deployed in the customer's environment to collect data and to work seamlessly with the application that you're purchasing from your SaaS provider. And when that happens, there's often a challenge in how you manage those resources and scale the deployment of those necessary resources to work in conjunction with your critical SaaS application. When that is the case, what we find is that customers are often spending time and critical engineering resources on that kind of configuration, and that can add time to the process of getting the advantage of the software you're purchasing. And overall, it can also reduce governance and the security and control you have around your application. So last year at reInvent, we launched a really awesome solution that we've kind of continued to iterate and expand on through this year, and that is SaaS Quick Launch. So SaaS Quick Launch is effectively a feature that AWS Marketplace sellers offering SaaS applications can optimize on their listing. What this does is it allows the seller to include a CloudFormation template right on their listing that provides a scripted pre-package of the resources that will be deployed that are necessary to work with the overall application. And so instead of, as a customer, needing to manage and deal with that offline or separately, all of that is pre-configured on the AWS Marketplace listing by the seller so that when it's time to click and purchase and deploy, you're able to do that really seamlessly from AWS Marketplace. So overall, SaaS Quick Launch provides a much more streamlined and an easier experience for deploying that critical SaaS application. It reduces our time to getting started because we're not spending that extra time, offline trying to figure out how to manage those bespoke resources, which super importantly frees up engineering resources. I think Harish mentioned this before. We don't want to spend time with those precious resources on this type of work. We want to spend that time working on your amazing product, working on the types of items that are roadmap critical, not on configuration of third-party vendors. And when we use Quick Start or Quick Launch, we're also able to maximize our security and reduce the risk that can come from these types of one-off configurations. So it gives our vendors some better controls to help really define what that repeatable process should look like, and as a customer, enhance your governance of using SaaS applications purchased from AWS Marketplace. So if you're now wondering, how do I get to use SaaS Quick Launch? It's something that you can do with just a couple of clicks. First, you are going to find a product that is in AWS Marketplace that you want to purchase, deploy, try, and buy that offers the Quick Launch feature. As the purchaser, you're going to need to review your permissions and make sure you actually have the right credentials and AWS permissions to provision resources. So if you do, you're good to go. Then you're going to be able to sign in using a user interface that requires you to configure the quick start that is going to deploy in your environment. And then in step 3, you're going to go ahead and provision those resources. That means you get to arrive much faster at your step 4, which is getting to actually launch and use your SaaS application. So the net of this, again, is really making sure that as a buyer, you're not wasting your time trying to configure some of those key resources that are part of the critical use of your SaaS application, but instead you're able to expedite your time to value. You want to get the applications that you need up and running, and then make sure that you're able to use that to innovate rather than trying to pull in resources to get things going manually. All right, so we're wrapping up here, and we have talked about a lot. Let's summarize some of the key things that we covered in our session. So at the top, Renee helped remind us that SaaS isn't really going anywhere, and it continues to be the preferred way that customers are innovating and that they are procuring software. We also heard that customers really use AWS Marketplace to streamline the process of buying, finding, and trying and deploying third-party software from AWS Marketplace. I think AWS Marketplace, when I talk about it to sellers that are considering why they sell, I always say it helps our customers really grow and procure software at the speed of the cloud. That's what we want. And then lastly, we talked about how AWS Marketplace features are designed to work backwards from customer needs, right? And they're designed to help solve the problems that come up in the buyer journey. So we know that parts of the buyer journey are always going to be critical aspects of how we procure software, and we want to develop features that help make the pain points associated with that process smoother, faster, and easier. Anything else to add?
No, I think you captured it perfectly, Louise. I think that's great. So the last thing that we want to do is we want to ask you to do a couple of things after you leave here today. First and foremost, not on the slide, but super duper important, please help us continue to improve the content that we are offering here at reInvent by completing your session surveys. It really helps us a ton to understand whether we hit the mark, whether we've got opportunities for improvement. So please take a couple of minutes and finish your survey. But then after that, we have a QR code on screen here. What this will take you to is a pre-filtered list of all of the SaaS products that are on Marketplace. That's going to be too long for you to wade through. But poke around, look at the software categories, look at the industries, look at the use cases that make the most sense for your business, and just see what's out there. And to Harish's point, just try it. Look for some free trials and see if there's anything out there that aligns to a project that you're thinking about completing in your business today. The next thing is, when you're talking to your SaaS providers that you're working with today, ask them about AWS Marketplace. Ask them if there are opportunities to drive your purchase or your renewal through the marketplace, and hear from them directly about that experience. And then lastly, connect with your AWS account manager and ask them to get you hooked up with someone like myself, like Louise, to answer your questions about how AWS Marketplace can really impact your business and can help you do that really critical thing associated to your digital transformation roadmaps of balancing that innovation and agility that's so important with the governance and compliance that you need to keep that risk exposure low as you're going forward. We really appreciate you being with us here today, especially on a Thursday afternoon. We know that we're standing in the way of replay, and hopefully all of you are planning to go to that. We will be making our way to the back of the room here, as will Harish. Happy to answer any questions that you may have for us. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon and enjoy replay tonight.
Thank you, guys. Thanks so much.